G'day, guys, and welcome back to the JFBS SuperCoach channel. And today we're going to go through a new series featuring all 18 teams. We're going to start off with Adelaide because they're at the top of the list alphabetical wise. But we're going to be doing team reviews SuperCoach wise. So we're going to have a talk about probably their starting 23, some guys that we can have a chat about. Definite players are playing, and there's some guys that probably might make, what's the word? They might just get in. They might just miss out. So we'll have a look at it together. So first of all, we can have a look. Shout out to Nerds for Life Super Coach on Twitter. He's been really good at getting a bunch of people sending him in track watch sources like Super Coach Code Sports and this guy Cricket Drag. All of them providing him good information to put it into a good little paragraph here, or a little page of just an easy summary to read and just have a little bit of a thought to have. So, the day I'm recording this, we found out that Josh Shelley's playing more in the midfield. So we'll get to that in a tick, but 369k forward, spent a lot of time in the midfield. Rankin and Saligo start a half forward. Dan Curtin, we know now that he's injured. Draper, Keys, running laps in the main group, both with injuries. Cotton, Archie, Maley were running laps as well. So not much there compared to the other teams that they do post, which is fine. But we get a pretty decent insight of, some players that we can talk about here. So start off from defenders to forwards. So we'll start off with Laird. Laird's a good, I'd say, in general, he's a good point of difference guy to go for. I don't think we're going to see him, I think he averaged, we can have a look at his past seasons, but he averaged, will career stats help? Here we go, yeah. So an average of 127.8 years ago, 116. I just don't see it happening again. He's going into his 14th or 15th year. So we're not going to be seeing the 108, 105, 116, 127, 116. Like that 3-year dominance that he had was really good. So look, like I said, I don't think we see him excelling anymore. I think he's just going to keep dropping off. I think 100 is his base. Does that mean he's in the best 6 by the end of the season? Most likely not. But if you're going for a point of difference, type of guy, he's not horrible, but I feel like his floor will be pretty interesting. So, he doesn't, Adelaide don't get a bye, so he plays Collingwood, Dogs, Geelong, Freo. So a pretty tough 4 matchups for Adelaide in general. They play Carlton, St Kilda, Brisbane. Then they go on a nice run of Port Adelaide, Richmond, North. So they don't have many games, Adelaide, where they're going to be flying for all of these games playing. So I think Rory Laird is probably the best option out of all these guys. Worrell, I haven't seen, only 1% of people have got him in their team. Look, I just don't think, in my opinion, I'm not going to go for a 487 guy who averaged 90 last year. Even if he goes up by 5, great. But I've got better options. Or I've got more people that I trust or have my trust in who have been doing it for years and average more than Worrell. So, look, you can go for him. If he makes that 10-point jump, that's even better, and you probably could start him, but just not for me. Wayne Miller, no one talks about, or I just wouldn't have him on your team. Keane, no. Hinge, no. Michael Annie, was it 2 years ago? No, you could have, but nah. Hugo Bond, is it Hugh or Hugo? Hugh, sorry. Hugh Bond. Now, I heard some good things about him last over pre-season. Only played the 4 games, 54, 45, 54, and 2. I'm assuming we can have a look at his... Have a look at his DFS Australia thing. He's a 21-year-old, so not bad. One, two, three, four. Oh, we did play in the finals. Oh. We'll put finals there. An average of 44. Had a 65 SuperCoach score with 74 tog. Or 91 time on ground and had a score of 2. Oh, my God. 87 scored a 54. So, look, they're not attractive numbers to look at, but over the preseason, I've read somewhere that he's been really impressing his peers. So he could be that 23rd, 22nd guy now that they've added another one onto the bench, getting rid of the sub rule. I reckon it's going to be good for Hugh Bond. You might have that opportunity, but this at the end of the day, I don't think he's a guy that I would probably go for, just because we've got some, more. We've got guys who are cheaper than him and have kind of locked a role, away for themselves. So I probably wouldn't go with him. All right, getting to some juicy stuff. Jordan Dawson. Now I've got him in my team personally. Look, I don't know if I should be explaining a lot because everyone knows how good Dawson is, but I've got him. I think he'll be a top 8 mid. Even though there's 20-something mids that you can choose from, I think Dawson is a very good player to have to start off with your team. Not a bad idea, in my opinion. I don't need to go into much more detail of how good this player is. Oh, excuse me. Isaac Rankin. Going to be very interesting to watch over the Oh, excuse me. Over the preseason. Sorry, I can't speak. He obviously is the prime forward option. I think this will be his last year that he plays forward, like has that forward status, kind of like Bailey Smith and Jack McRae, who had it for 1 year. It's definitely their last year of having it. I think it's Rankin's last year of having forward status, unless something dramatically changes, like they start playing him half forward, like they did in I think it was Nerds for Life. Yeah, started half forward. Him and Soligo started half forward. So look, I wouldn't be too worried about that because, when he first joined Adelaide, he was playing half forward and averaging pretty high numbers. So wouldn't be too worried about that. We can have a look at his career stats as well for Super Coach. When did he join Adelaide? Was it 24? Yeah, I want to say it was 2024, 3. Maybe it was 23 because he had a decent chunk at Gold Coast. So I think it was 23. But yeah, an average of 82, 96, 99 last year. So I think he'll be a really decent option up forward. He's probably the second guy or third guy I'd go for at the forward line if he was healthy round 1. He is obviously suspended in the first round, but you've got obviously Shees or Petrarca, then it's Rankin, then it's Flanders. Those are your top 4 there. So just keep it in mind that he does miss the first game. I know 8% of people have got him. But they might be doing a loop thing where they play him as a vice captain loop. But there's no point. Oh, actually, no, there is a bit of a point, I guess, because there's no one else on a bye really in round 1. So yeah, Isaac Rankin, interesting option you could go for. I'll just go this by really quickly as well. So Soligo, Peatling, Berry, Cumming, they're guys that I don't think are going to be average. Like, they're not going to be on your team for the right reasons, if that makes sense. Like, they're going to be staying at around that price because that is where they play as their role. Cummings off the wing, but he doesn't accumulate a lot of disposals, even though he does use the ball all right. You got Soligo, who last year people jumped on him and were like, "Oh, this might be, someone to look out for." An average of 90. Look, not the best, but not the worst either. But you had a look at last year where people were like, "Oh, yeah, 114, 108, 108, 126." Then he went on this. Like, people started getting him. It doesn't say how many people jumped on him, but he just started stinking it up. And then another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scores So he had 10 scores of over 100. And obviously the first four being over 100. And then he scored from round 5 onwards, 6 games where scored over 100, which isn't enough for anyone, even if you are thinking of Soligo, which I probably doubt, 99% of the people are thinking, oh, why would I go with him? Fair enough. But my point is that if there's a guy like that, like Soligo, I'd probably stay away from him. Peatling, nah. Berry, no. Cumming, no. I wanted to talk about Nankervis and Scholl. So they're guys that are like, because Adelaide's actually a deep, side when you think about it. With Scholl and Nankervis predominantly playing VFL last year, they played like 7 and 5 games. Lockie Scholl had that wing spot locked at Adelaide, and I thought he was decent. I actually rate him as a player, but obviously you've got Cumming and you've got Peatling who come from the wings. I know Peatling goes into the middle, but you've got players that you've got Cumming who's like absolutely locked that wing spot, and then other guys as well. You got Sid Draper who's been there as well. I'm pretty sure. Like it'll be interesting if there's an injury riddled start for Adelaide. Luke Nankervis and Lockie Scholl. Not saying that they'll average heaps, but they'll definitely make at least 100K. Is what I'm saying. Sid Draper, he's a guy that'll be interesting to look over at the preseason games. I think he'll be a decent watch now that Dan Curtin's gone. It kind of opens that mid spot. And I know Rochelli's kind of jumped on it. And then there's a wing spot, a half forward spot. There's a couple of spots that have opened up for Sid Draper because of the Dan Curtin injury and other guys as well. Dan Curtin's looked amazing also preseason. So, that's why everyone's kind of like, oh, well, who's going to fill in the shoes? He had a great end of the season last year, but Sid Draper played about 10 games. He got subbed in pretty much all of them, I want to say. But now the can't bloody type. But now that the sub rule's gone, I think it'll be fine, but I think his time on ground will be a lot worse. Round 102. Round 102. What? Okay. That is not the right one. He played, look, sub 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's the blue thing, mate? Oh, you have 50% or more CBA game. Yeah, look at that. An average of 20 of 17. And then these 2 games, which I will quickly do, an average of 48. Time on ground was 63 and 60, and he averaged 48. If it was bumped up a bit more, then it's probably you're looking at around a 60 or a 70 type score. So not bad. You just need to be wary of like what his time on ground would be, which will be interesting to see. With preseason, also, we probably don't need to look into it. Like, we'll have to look into it a lot, obviously. But when it comes to guys like, 24th, 25th guys are like, oh, they played super well. You've got to realize that, Dawson's most likely, he might not play one of the games. Rankin might not play one of the games. Hillthorpe, I'm probably certain that Taylor Walker's not going to play any games. So there's going to be quite a few players that aren't going to play. Moving on to the rucks, which I think this is the most interesting conversation out of all the positions, in my opinion. I know you've only got 2 options there with Riley O'Brien and Lachlan McAndrew. Now, why you must be thinking, why is it so interesting to talk about the rucks? They might be the most boring combo of all time. It is not. The ruck conversation at Adelaide is emerging. That Lachlan McAndrew might play round 1 for Adelaide instead of Riley O'Brien. They still might play him, but they might have Lachlan McAndrew be in that starting 23. Might be the 23rd guy. The reason I say that is these new ruck rules have really affected every ruck, especially Riley O'Brien. Apparently, it was a match simulation where he was, he didn't know what to do. He was asking the umpire, going, what can I do? What can't I do? and then McAndrew is winning all those contests, obviously. I think there'll be other rucks who we, you know, that probably will have a better, what's the word? Like they'll learn it quicker than Riley O'Brien. Not saying that he'll be the guy to go for, but look, that's 1% owned, which is very interesting. McAndrew is a different ruck. I've never seen him. I've never even seen his face, but this is what I've heard, is that he was jumping over the top. He's more of a leaper than Riley O'Brien, which we've known O'Brien to be. A bit more of a bang into the other guy and hit out type player. He never really jumps, not much of a leap on him. But apparently McAndrew does, and it seems like his rucking fits the game a lot better. So it'll be one to keep an eye out for preseason. I'll be saying that a lot for these 18 teams. Riley Thilthorpe, I think him, and we'll get to Rochelle soon, are the only two guys that'll be worth it having it in your forward line. I personally don't have Thilthorpe playing. Like, I don't have him on my team because I kind of set a rule for myself where I do no key forwards because I feel like there'll be one game where he just does shit. And that's fine, but his price will tank. Maybe he gets a couple bad games in a row. I know Darcy Moore's looking like to miss round one, it seems, so he might excel against Collingwood, for example. He's got the Dogs, and we've seen that Sam Darcy's absolutely dominated that Dogs defence, which means Thilthorpe will do just as well. Geelong will be tough. Freo will be somewhat tough. Carlton will be tough. St Kilda will be interesting. Like Port, I reckon he'll dominate in that he can. Richmond, he can. Brisbane, he might. He can probably. North, he can. So he's got some good matchups early on as well. The first, 10 rounds? Yeah, first 10 rounds, he's got some good matchups. He can definitely score over 100s in the teams that I've mentioned there. So keep an eye on him. He is 525k, 2% people own him. Look, I'm not going to go for him because there's all the chance that you can get him for 400k. And then he can rise back up again to around 530, just in my opinion. Oh, excuse me. Ben Keys, 450k, obviously bit of an interrupted preseason. I'm sure he'll be fine come round one. Neil Bullen as well. Keys, Neil Bullen, Archie, these guys play probably a similar role when it comes to high half forward. Archie will probably be a bit more down deep now at Adelaide, but, Neil Bullen and Ben Keys come up to the ball a bit more to apply that forward pressure, which is really good, and that's what I really like about these two players. But look, an average of 83 and 77, look, I just don't think it'll be worth it. You'll be trading them out after, round 8, for example, and they're still at their price point because that's what their role is. That's what their average comes to, is where their role is at. Obviously, 0% of people are going for them. Taylor Walker probably wouldn't touch him within a 10-foot radius, in my opinion. Just don't do it. Fogarty as well. It's just interesting because imagine if you got rid of Walker or Fogarty, Thilthorpe, and then one of the other two's average would go up so much more. But, I don't mind the 3 tall lineup for Adelaide. So obviously you've got to look at, your team's performing over SuperCoach points. But look, if Walker or Fogarty weren't playing, Thilthorpe's numbers would go up. And I think a lot more people would be more intrigued by the idea of having them on their team. Last but not least on the list that I've got here is Josh Rochelle. Now, we've heard all the news. We've heard the big noise. The day I'm recording this, it happened yesterday. So I'm recording this on the 2nd. I think this is coming out on the 5th or the 6th. I can't remember. But we heard yesterday that Josh Rochelle has been training in the midfield and he dominated one of the match sims. At 369k, that is a pretty juicy price. We can have a look at his, just his little averages here. Sorry, I just went silent whenever I type. Let's have a look. Where's his CBA? The most he had was this last year? I feel like he had a pretty interrupted season. Oh, maybe towards the end. 20, 13, 13, 13. Average of 84. And then you got 4, 4, 5, 3, 11, 5, 59. And you got 0, but he looked like he was the starting sub. Yeah, starting sub. And where else did he play? 25. 1, 2. An average, oh God, I can't speak, an average of 66.5 there. And then the ones that he was in CBAs, an average of 69. Get rid of these ones. 82.5. He is priced at 68.3. Is that right? I think that is. He's priced at 68.3. Sorry, I was a bit silent there. I'm just looking there. If he gets to an 82.5, he could get to about 450K. And I reckon he'll average even more. So he's a guy you can definitely look at and go, oh, he's a decent mid-priced option. I don't have him in my team because I don't like I know this sounds horrible and this is what's going to separate me with the number one spot going for SuperCoach, is that I don't like taking big risks. I'm not saying Rochelle is a big risk. I'm just saying that he could easily just be horrible and then fall out of that mid rotation, go back to half forward and average, he's like around 70 average. I just don't think it's a smart idea personally. For me, I think he'll be a decent guy to go for. If you want to take that risk, I reckon he's risk factor number one out of all these guys. He can be super worth it in the end. But yeah, I'm personally not going to go for him. Other guys that we didn't talk about, Dan Curtin, obviously with his injury, missing half the season. Don't touch him. I just even think don't even bother going for him even when he comes back, because I think it'll be slow to come back too with those leg injuries. Zach Taylor played quite a few games. He's definitely like pushing to be that 23rd spot. He is probably that 23rd spot, but you've got a few other guys that might be. Oh, he might be there. He might be there. Nick Murray, Pedler, nah, Butts, no. Billy Dowling, I've heard a couple Adelaide fans were high on him. Maybe he could do something. Not sure. Ball Ace, no. I'm going to say no. Maley, I'm going to say no, even though he went to he's changed of scenery. No, I just don't think he's getting a game at Adelaide, especially if he's a forward or a ruck. Ruck he could, but I just don't think so. Cook, no. Edwards, no. Jones, no. And a lot of their rookies here: Mitch Marsh, Indy Cotton, Tyler Welsh, Lidwick. I think that's how you say. He was drafted this year as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there 4 drafted? Yeah, fair enough. All right, I think that's going to be it for me. My favourite picks, we will go through that as well. Obviously, Dawson, Rankin. I think McAndrew, if it all falls right, he's a great pick. Don't mind Thilthorpe. I'd like the Rochelle idea. And Hugh Bond is like right at the end. Sid Draper as well, sorry. So Dawson, Rankin, Rochelle, Laird, Thilthorpe. That's my top 5. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys have a good one. Let me know if I didn't talk about these guys properly, or if there's a guy that you think that would do better than what I've said, and you reckon he could be an end of season guy that you can have on your team. Let me know. I'm all ears. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.